Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
You know, the media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere, on air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting with locations up and down the East Coast from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools. Redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Live from Studio C at the Cherry Hill campus for the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, it's All Noise Radio's Sports Talk with Rabbi.
Down goes Frazier. He scores. High fly ball into right field. She is gone.
Welcome to another edition of here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, I am here all hour taking your phone calls, 856-330-4749, or if you're unable to get to a phone line, to get to a rotary, then send me a chime, send me a message. Send me a message either to facebook.com/sports or hit me up on Twitter at the Yossi G. We got a fun show. We got a lot to talk about this past week in sports. Oh my. Where do we even begin? And I'll tell you where we're going to begin. We have like this. Here's the slate. All right. We're going to be talking a little later on all about the whole Johnny Manziel situation, the NCAA, what it means immediately, and of course, what this whole thing that the NCAA does in terms of keeping players for themselves, so to speak, what it means for the NCAA going forward. We're going to have our Phillies insider, Ari Bluestein, the CEO of SFBN Sports Network, Phillies High School Sports Network, and of course the voice of the Drexel Dragons. He'll be on a little later on in the show to talk about Johnny Manziel, as he also loves college football and is a big pundit in that arena. And of course we'll talk to him about the Phillies and the state that they find themselves in. Other news around the league, of course, I would be remiss if I did not begin with A-Rod on aroids. A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez, New York Yankees third baseman, being found guilty by the Major League Baseball, and they essentially suspended him for 211 games. And of course, they gave him a 3-day grace period, which ended today, of which he, A-Rod, can appeal that ban, and of course he put in that appeal for that ban, and likely that this will end up going in front of an arbitrator sometime probably in November, and that will decide the fate of his next season and a half. Right now, if A-Rod were to have sat if he would have decided to accept the suspension, then he would be out the rest of this season and all of next season and attempt to come back to baseball as a 40-year-old and collect his last $60 million or so on his contract that he's owed through 2017 from the New York Yankees, from that ridiculous 10-year deal that they gave him for $275 million. Now, of course, there are always these questions that people have specifically to A-Rod. You know, you can understand to a degree where you have guys who are, AAA guys shuttling back and forth between the minors and the majors, guys who are on the end of the bench and want to get some more playing time in the majors, or guys who just want to make the majors to begin with and have been roiling around in minor league ball for years on end, and they want to get their shot to crack the big club. You could understand, it's wrong, but you could understand why somebody in that position or any of those positions would want to juice, would want to take steroids to try to enable their opportunities, to try to enhance their chances of sticking with the big club. But somebody in Alex Rodriguez's situation, somebody in A-Rod's place, likely that he was taking steroids since he was a teenager, very likely. And which is unfortunate because he looks like he's the type of a player that even if he wasn't juicing, allegedly, then he probably wouldn't be the exact same player like he is today or like he's been over his career, but certainly probably 80-85% of that same player. He probably would be shooting for 500 home runs, 550 now as opposed to, well past 600. So you look at a player like Alex and you say to yourself, I mean, seriously, if I was in Alex Rodriguez's position, I signed that 10-year, $275 million deal after I already signed a 10-year, $252 million deal with Texas only 7 years earlier. I got it made in the shade for myself, my kids, grandkids. I mean, an unforeseen amount of generations after me that are taken care of. You put a couple million of those dollars in a bank, lock it up for 150 years. Guess what? That interest, man, let me tell you, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of cash. So if I'm in that position and I think to myself, what would I do? WWYD, what would Yossi do? What would a sports rabbi do if he was in that position? Well, guess what? If I was juicing, and of course I was mentioned in the Mitchell Report in 2003, 2004, and if I was juicing, comes 2007, and I've been denying it and everything like that up until that point to what Alex Rodriguez, the extent of what Rodriguez had admitted and had denied. Comes 2007, I signed that deal with the Yankees, $275 million. We win the World Series in 2009. And then, I, Alex Rodriguez, fall to hip surgery number 1. Okay, well, guess what? I now can go ahead and stop taking steroids, if I'm still taking steroids up until that point, and say, that's it, enough. I'm 35, 36 years old. Eventually, age is going to catch up to me, and I'm going to start a decline in my production. I'm in on that contract with the Yankees for another, 6-7 years. So what the heck do I care? I'm still going to be getting paid. I'm going to try my butt off to make sure that I can go ahead and perform to the best of my abilities without juicing. I'm going to go clean. And try to go clean to the best of my abilities. And I know it's going to affect me mentally. And I know I'm going to have to get over the fact that, I was so good up until this point, but I really, truly believe that I was only that good because I was taking steroids. Because I was on something that is not allowed or that is unethical towards the game. But now that I'm off it, I don't think I could perform to the same level, the same capability that I was able to perform up until this point. Well, guess what? I'll go seek some help. I'll go seek some counseling, some sports, psychologist or something like that. Go seek him or her out and have them sit me down and explain to me and go through with me to seek out the core root issue and then bring forth how I can overcome it and still be able to do the best that I can to believe in myself without taking those steroids, without taking those substances. Believe in myself for my abilities, for the God-given abilities that I was lucky to have been born with. Go out and perform to the best of my abilities that I am capable of doing, even though it will likely decline, even though it will likely go downhill as I, Alex Rodriguez, continues to age beyond just what it says in my passport. Well, guess what? I don't think anybody would be able to have a complaint to him. You can have a complaint to the Yankees management for giving him such a dumb, silly, ridiculous contract. But for Alex or Scott Boras, his agent, I mean, you can't have any complaints to them. It's a buyer's market. If you want my services, you're going to pay me. And in this case, Alex Rodriguez was selling his services to the highest bidder, which happened to have been the Yankees bidding against themselves. If you look back in 2007, the only people who were in on that contract, it was originally $250 million, and they redid the contract for, I think the Yankees took in that original Texas contract of 10 years, $252. They had like 2 or 3 years left. I think it was 2 years left. And they went ahead and they gave him another 10-year extension. And it went over the $252 million mark at $275. They were bidding against themselves. There was nobody else out there that was going to give Rodriguez that much money at 33, 34 years old, sign him for such a lengthy time to give him so much money. Now, of course, you're going to say one of the reasons why the Yankees did that was because they assumed that Alex was going to be healthy enough that he would be chasing Hank Aaron's record for home runs. Barry Bonds' record doesn't really count. That they would be able to sell all these tickets because people would want to come watch Alex Rodriguez chase the record for most home runs. They could sell all the memorabilia. They could sell all the merchandise. They could do all these additional things that would help the Yankees brand. They help the Yankees cause of promoting itself as a sports entity by giving Alex Rodriguez this idiotic contract. Well, again, it falls back to Alex Rodriguez and Scott Boras. You have to give them kudos for them holding their ground steadfastly and saying, if you want us, if you want me, Alex Rodriguez, to sign with you to make sure that I don't opt out of a contract or hit the free agent market and go elsewhere, you want me to help market your brand in 6, 7, 8 years from now? Well, guess what? You're going to pay an extreme premium. You're going to pay me that crazy, ridiculous amount of money per year. 10 years, $275. Guess what? The Yankees are the only entity in this case, money-wise, to blame. Because why would you do that? You want it that bad? You're going to pay the price. The question, though, with Alex Rodriguez now goes a little farther than just that. Goes a little farther than him, where does he go from here? Alex Rodriguez, the question really goes now is, why did Bud Selig stop short of giving Rodriguez a lifetime ban? Selig only gave him a ban for 211 games. Why did Bud Selig stop short of a lifetime ban if supposedly, purportedly, apparently, all of this evidence that they have from Anthony Bosch's biogenesis clinic, the paper trail linking biogenesis to A-Rod, is so good, is so infallible? If the entire link between A-Rod and biogenesis goes beyond just of A-Rod taking the steroids, but it goes to A-Rod trying to tamper with evidence by trying to tamper with a witness, by leading other players towards biogenesis, by bringing in more clients for Anthony Bosch. If this evidence is so infallible, then why did Selig, the commissioner of baseball, Bud Selig, stop short of giving Alex Rodriguez a lifetime ban? Why did he only drop a 211-game suspension on Alex Rodriguez? That really is now the big question on the market. I look at this whole situation, that is the question that I want to know. Why this is the limit, so to speak, of A-Rod's ban. If you have an answer, you want to chime in on the other side of the break, you can chime in, 856-330-4749, and we'll continue the baseball talk. I'll bring to you a surprise all-star team. Kind of like an all-star team. You'll hear all about it on the other end. You're listening to by here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Honey, again you're sitting here sulking?
I hate my job and I don't know what to do to change it.
Get off the couch and go check out the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
The Connecticut School of Broadcasting? What's that? The Connecticut School of Broadcasting offers a career and lifestyle change through a broadcasting experience you won't ever forget. Log on to GoCSB.com to find out how a career in broadcasting is for you and not just the people you see on TV or hear on the radio. CSB focuses on many aspects of real-world broadcasting, and their knowledgeable instructors teach you through a hands-on approach so you're in the studio in no time. To find out how CSB can help you work in an industry you love, call 1-800-TV-RADIO or check us out online at GoCSB.com.
Why work 50 weeks a year for a 2-week vacation when you can enjoy your job every day?
Don't just sit there. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com.
Thanks, CSB.
All Noise Radio. The noise. The noise. You can't ignore.
Welcome back to Sport here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. If you want to get in on the conversation, 856-330-4749, or send me a message to Facebook.com/Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi, or tweet at me. Send me a message on Twitter at the Yossi G. We have a lot to talk about. We were talking before the break a little bit about Alex Rodriguez, but more importantly, besides the fact of why the Yankees signed him to that deal and who you really have to blame for all this extra money lying around and what A-Rod is really fighting for here at the end of the day, his legacy and nearly $100 million, the bigger question, the larger fish, essentially is not who we are blaming, in this case the Yankees or Alex Rodriguez. The bigger question that has gone unanswered is, why did Bud Selig stop short? The commissioner of baseball, why did he not go all the way and give Alex Rodriguez a lifetime ban from baseball if apparently all the evidence, the entire paper trail that leads Anthony Bosch's biogenesis clinic in Florida to Alex Rodriguez is so good and sound? Why did Selig stop short and only give him a little less than a season and a half in terms of games as a ban? 211. Why did he not go all the way? There are different ways you could probably answer that, and we'll talk about it next segment. After this break, we'll talk about it with we'll have on the line Ari Bluestein, the Drexel Dragons basketball voice, and the CEO of SFBN, the Philly High School Sports Network, and knowledge of all things baseball and college sports. Maybe he'll have some insight to this. Maybe he'll be able to shed some light as to why Selig stopped short. But that's the question I'm putting out there, and you want to chime in on the conversation. You want to chime in your reasoning for it. 856-330-4749. Or send me a message, Twitter at the Yossi G, or Facebook.com/Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi. For my own opinion, I'm looking at this and I say, Selig probably stopped short is really because he takes a look at Alex Rodriguez and he says, you're a good guy. You probably juiced all your life. We have all this evidence on you that you did X, Y, and Z together. But for the game of baseball, I don't think he was prepared to take that step, because maybe, just maybe, some of the evidence might be fallible. Some of the evidence might not go the distance. And he knew that if he went with a lifetime ban, possibly, that in the arbitration, it might be completely shot down because, this is all alleged. The evidence isn't that great. There are all these outside possibilities as to why he would not go that far, or really as to why a lifetime ban would be shot down upon appeal. Gambling, what happened with Pete Rose, gambling back in, when he was a manager in baseball, gambling on baseball, betting on games, that's something that deliberately affects an outcome or can affect an outcome on a game. That one guy is juicing There's 8 other guys on the team. A manager is the guy who's in a position of power to make decisions. A manager is the guy who is the one to make substitutions, the one to make certain decisions, perhaps to leave in a pitcher, bring in a pitcher, move guys around in the outfield, up and down the bench, who's going to come and pinch run, not the pinch run. He is the guy who makes decisions that can and may directly affect the outcome of the game. Alex Rodriguez is just one player out of 9. If you have to fear him juicing or not juicing, you're going to fear him anyways. You could pitch around him theoretically every single time. Walk him every single time. And guess what? You got another player to pitch to. You can get him to ground into a double play. Bang, bang, there you go, 2 outs. A manager, he's the guy directly affecting the game. And I think that's where Bud Selig was looking at it and saying, I'm just not prepared to go down that road. A lifetime ban for a player? Yeah, he has done it once, and he's second. He's a repeat offender or a repeat player to have allegations against. But does that really warrant? I mean, he's never suspended before. Does that really warrant because there was repeat allegations against Alex Rodriguez, does that warrant for him to be banned for the rest of his life? Never to have any connection to baseball in any form, shape, anything? Is that really enough to go down that road? And I think Bud Selig said to himself, it's not. Because Alex Rodriguez is but one player, and Pete Rose was the manager. He was the guy in charge. He was the guy who was able to directly affect the outcome of a game. I think that's weird. Selig drew the line and said, you know what? Rose, yeah, a lifetime ban, fine. But A-Rod, 211 games, that should probably, do the lesson. Of course, that then begs the question, does this really do enough? Is 211 games to Alex Rodriguez enough? What happens after these 211 games? Alex Rodriguez is just going to come back, play the Yankees, play with them. He's still under contract at 2017. And he's owed another $60 million that he'll be able to collect. So he's out of the pocket $35 million. Big deal. He's made $275 million over 10 years and a $252 million over 10 years, which would end up being 7 years, so a little bit less than $252 million, about $175 over 7 years. The contract before. The guy's a rich guy. He's got it made in the shade. And he doesn't even have to go back and play baseball. I mean, he'll try to. Obviously, he wants to cash in on those $60 million, but he doesn't have to go back and play baseball. The question then goes, if he comes back, what kind of precedent is this setting? I mean, look at everybody. Look at Ryan Braun. He's essentially taking the rest of the season off. He's taking a vacation. He's going to come back to Brewers Park, Miller Park in Milwaukee. Everyone's going to love him. Play some outfield, hit some home runs, get a pretty good, batting average. We'll love him. It's great. Look at some of the other guys. Johnny Peralta, he'll come back. He'll play. Great. Nelson Cruz. Texas already said that if they make the playoffs, he'll be on the roster. So, slap on the wrist. That's really all this is. Slap on the wrist. In order for baseball, and I've been saying this before many a times, and I'll probably continue to say this to beat this till it's a dead horse. If baseball wants to go ahead and finally eradicate drugs, or performance-enhancing drugs, from its game, it's going to have to take that leap of faith. It's going to have to open up the CBA and rework the wording, rework the actual collective bargaining agreement to a degree where if the players truly want to get this out of the game, to get HGH, to get all this other hormone, steroids, performance-enhancing drugs out of the game, out of baseball, if the players really do truly want this, then they'll open up the CBA together. The owners and the Players Association, they will open up the CBA and rework it into the contracts, rework the wording that that teams are allowed to put into the contracts a steroid clause. because the players who want it to, who are clean, will say, yeah, for sure we want this. We don't want to be leapfrogged by players who are on something. And the players who are juicing, they'll see what's going on and they'll have to realize their error. And anyways, as it is, I really do believe it's a very, very small minority of players. And if you do this, if you eradicate it by doing this, then the incentive is no longer there. At this point right now, in baseball, the incentive to use performance-enhancing drugs is there. It's such a great incentive that if I get that 50 games, to me, if I get busted, is but a slap on the wrist. Because the incentive of making the big league club, of getting that big money contract, the incentive to be set for life is there. What's 50 games in the long scheme of things? 856-330-4749. Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. You want to get in on it, chime in, give me a call, or send me a message to facebook.com/Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi. And, of course, you can always tweet at me at the Yossi G. Get in on the conversation. We got a little chime in here from Mo from Brooklyn. Says, it's unfair to fine A-Rod 211 games when everyone else got 50. Oh, Mo, listen. Oh, I'm sorry, he's got some more stuff. He says, the Yankees will get rid of A-Rod as soon as he stops being an asset. Okay, twofold, Mo. Here's the deal. A-Rod got 211 games because he allegedly continued lying to us. There was allegations that he took in in the early 2000s. Said no. He's named on the Mitchell report. There's allegations he took a little later on in the later 2000s, and again in 2011. And guess what? He's named in biogenesis. He linked to biogenesis. So he's been alleged before to have taken steroids. It goes, though, a little bit more beyond that. The other players who got 50, it was just them who were linked to biogenesis. Alex Rodriguez brought players to the clinic. He tried tampering with evidence with a witness and thereby tried tampering with evidence. You try doing these things, it's going to garner a heavier fine. It's going to get you a loftier suspension. 50 games for Alex Rodriguez. If you gave Ryan Braun 65, how do you give Alex Rodriguez 50? That's for starters. Second, Alex Rodriguez went above and beyond the call of duty. There's one thing if you go and you do something wrong. It's another thing when you lead people astray, when you lead people off the right path, the straight and narrow path. And that's why he got 211 games. Now, the other point that you make, Mo, about the Yankees getting rid of him as soon as he stops being an asset, they're trying to get rid of him now. They're trying to trade his contract, but nobody wants that albatross. Nobody wants that contract, nearly $100 million for another 5 years. Nobody wants that deal. The team will be stupid. I mean, the team will be even dumber than the Montreal Canadiens from taking the contract of Scott Gomez off the New York Rangers' hands. Nobody wants that contract. There's no team desperate enough out there to want an aging third baseman who has looked like a shell of himself, even supposedly on steroids. Nobody wants that contract. There's no team that's that desperate that's going to want Alex Rodriguez for that amount of money. Yeah, they'll take a chance on him for $3-4 million a year, not for 25. No way is that happening. Not a chance. So, that the Yankees will try to get rid of him as soon as he stops being an asset? He stopped being an asset to the Yankees a long time ago. Really, I mean, they've been trying to ship him out for years now. You talk about a team that's depleted and is welcoming him back right now? Yeah, of course. Because they have a bunch of AAA guys on the team right now. So, of course, they're going to welcome back Alex Rodriguez. I mean, what else can they do? They can't trade him. So they may as well welcome him back. It may not be with an open arm, certainly a cold shoulder, but they'll still welcome him back. They're trying to trade him. Of course they're trying to trade him. They tried doing that for years. Been unsuccessful and will continue to be unsuccessful. They'll have to end up eating this contract or somehow find some way that insurance will end up paying for it, or somehow to sever the contract because of all the steroid stuff. On the other side of this commercial break, Ari Bluestein, voice of the Drexel Dragons basketball and CEO of SFBN, the Philly High School Sports Network. We're going to talk some Johnny football and the state of the Philadelphia Phillies. Oh my gosh, what a disaster it was at the ballpark Tuesday night. Sports Talk with Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
It's been 48 years Connecticut School of Broadcasting has helped place thousands of people, just like you, in exciting careers in radio, television, and the new media. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, our hands-on approach is different. It's designed to have you spend less time in the classroom and more time in the studios. From the first day, you'll work with state-of-the-art equipment. Learn by doing from our team of industry professionals who come from their studios to ours. The best part about it, you'll learn it all in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. So do what I did. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Step into the fast-paced world of the broadcast media. Day and evening classes begin soon. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Get trained and get connected now. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com.
Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Welcome back to I am Yossi G here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. It is finally time and we're time and ready. It's my privilege to bring on to this show the CEO of SFBN and voice of the Drexel Dragons and all things knowledgeable about everything in NCAA and Philadelphia sports, Ari Bluestein. Ari, how are you doing out there?
I'm good. How are you, Yossi?
Very good, very good. So before we get into talking all about this whole Johnny Manziel, the whole NCAA probe and everything that it involves and it may entail going down the road, something that's been on the listener's mind, on my mind, I'm sure about everybody else, before we get into talking about Philadelphia and the Phillies, just a little note on Alex Rodriguez and the whole biogenesis thing, the whole Bud Selig, 211 games. The question really goes as to, perhaps you may have been speaking to people, but why did Bud Selig stop short of giving Alex Rodriguez perhaps a lifetime ban and only give him 211 games?
It's a good question. Not really sure what were the discussions. I feel like they probably thought a lifetime ban might be a little bit too extensive for that. When you compare a lifetime ban to a guy like, let's say, like Pete Rose, for example, he had the lifetime ban for the gambling, and he's not allowed in the Hall of Fame, et cetera. And this would be potentially, if there's a lifetime ban, potentially it would be the situation for Alex Rodriguez. Who knows how much proof there is? It's pretty cut and dry with Pete Rose that he did gamble on baseball, and he pretty much admitted it later. And I don't know what kind of proof there was. Obviously, Alex Rodriguez is linked to it, but I feel like the suspension through 2014 it would be a huge detriment to Alex Rodriguez because he'd be losing a lot of money, considering he got a huge contract and the Yankees owe him a lot of money. So you see, that would be, if they would do a lifetime ban for Alex Rodriguez, that kind of would set a precedent going forward. And I'm not sure that Bud Selig was quite ready to set that type of precedent for this type of offense. I think that's pretty much what I expected, Yossi, honestly, was to be suspended for this season and the rest of next season, not a lifetime ban. That's what I was thinking was going to happen. So, again, there could have been a number of reasons why, and we'll probably never know the real thought process from it. But I think pretty much that sounds about right. I think they got it right.
Well, I think you really hit the hammer on the nail when you mentioned that Bud Selig may have been a little skeptical about setting a precedent for something like this, because again, nothing to date has ever been laid out for us to see to allow us to give a true judgment, perhaps based upon what Alex Rodriguez did, for what a true and fair punishment, so to speak, would be were this to come and go from alleged to actuality. Right now, there's just the evidence. There's allegedly that he did all these things. There's no precedent for which we as the general public of public opinion, and we are again also throwing Bud Selig into this, where he can go forward and say, hey, we have X, Y, and Z. We know what we've done before, and we can then take from what we've done before and apply it to this case. I think that's probably the reasoning behind why Selig didn't go ahead and throw out a lifetime ban. But like I promised everybody before we went to break, they all heard about my story at Citizens Bank Park on Tuesday night. Phillies opening up a 3-game series against the Chicago Cubs. Cubbies come to town, and right away, it's cool. I got these seats with my wife. We're there. It's our first Phillies game of the season. It's threatening rain. We weren't sure. Do we go? Do we not go? And we decided we're going to go anyways. What the heck? We brought an umbrella just in case. And it seems like that was the omen for the night. We brought the umbrella. It didn't rain. As soon as we got into the car, it started pouring. Whatever. We get to the game, and make a long story short, the Phillies are up 9-5 in the 9th inning. And all I heard was crickets. I kid you not, I heard crickets at Citizens Bank Ballpark. Explain this to me. What the heck is going on? Your team is up by 4 runs. Apparently, that's literally one that is too many because they squeezed out a 9-8 victory. You had to sweat a little bit there with Jonathan Papelbon and his outfielders as well. They're mucking up what should have been a 9-7 victory at an error out in the outfield. What's going on with the Phillies?
Well, I think obviously in terms of the crickets, the fans really aren't behind this team because of the way that they've been performing. I mean, the Phillies, I believe, are something like 3-14 after the All-Star break, after Tuesday's win. So they haven't been playing well, and they were even mediocre. They were at an even 500 going into the All-Star break. I think the fans are really not happy with the way things are going. You also have to look at Roy Halladay, Ryan Howard, and Ben Revere are all out significant injuries, and they won't be time soon. So you look at that, and also the way Cole Hamels has pitched. It's just been a very bad year for the Phillies, and it's tough for the fans to get behind this team, especially when they've been declining every year since they won the World Series in 2008. 09, lost in the World Series. 10, lost in the NLCS. 11, lost in the NLDS. And last year, they didn't even make the playoffs. So it's been a steep decline for this aging team, and I think people really are not getting behind them. Now, in terms of the state of the Phillies, I would say that there is still some promise for this team because there are still some good young players that are going to be everyday players next year. Dominic Brown was an All-Star this year, and he's having a good year. He just came back from a concussion. Darren Ruff, a young outfielder / first baseman, has going into after Tuesday's game had a consecutive on base game streak at about, I think it was like a 38 or something at that point. And you also look at some other young pitchers. You have Cole Hamels, you have a young guy in Ethan Martin, and you have Ben Revere, who's out with an injury, but he's still a good young guy. And maybe there's a chance that the Phillies can mix some young guys with some veterans next year to make some noise. But I think the Phillies really need to address the bullpen. The bullpen has been terrible this year, including Papelbon, who you saw on Tuesday night gave up a few runs in the 9th inning when he had a 4-run lead and very nearly blew the game. And he's blown a lot of games after being perfect for really the first couple of months of the season. So there's a lot of question marks for the Phillies. There's some good young attributes that I think the Phillies can potentially build around, but I would say that the window has officially closed for this group of players, which would include Rollins, Utley, Howard, Ruiz, and I guess you can include Hamels, even though Hamels is young and will continue on for a long time here in Philadelphia.
Well, you touched on another point I was going to bring up, and that is the what the Phillies have to do going forward in order to bring the best effort to the ballpark, in order to bring fans seemingly back to the bank, back to Citizens Bank Ballpark. And that is twofold. Firstly, it was an outfield that they had to address. Now, when you look at what Ben Revere had done up until he got injured and was out and broke his leg, those 2-3 months after April, May, June, July, most of July, he was really performing at a level where you can argue that the deal that was made by the Philadelphia Phillies to bring him in by Ruben Amaro Jr., the general manager, was possibly the best off-season outfielder acquisition. It could be argued for that. So going forward and hoping that Ben Revere would be able to replicate or duplicate the output that he had, if you're able to bottle those 2-3 months and continue that going into next season, then you have one outfielder short of Dominic Brown, all-star, coming back from the concussion. Looks like he got right back into his groove Tuesday night at the game, 2 for 4, a couple RBIs. So also him, he's a good outfielder as well. Once Ryan Howard comes back and he's going to maintain his first base position, you have, of course, the other outfielder in Ruff. My bad there. And you have what seems to have an outfield that is shored up, and you have Mayberry Jr. As a potential fourth outfielder there, unless you want to throw him out there as a trade bait. But in terms of the bullpen, and I've been saying this from before the trade deadline, they have to figure out what to do with that huge albatross of a contract, or what's turning into an albatross of a contract, of Jonathan Papelbon. Because, like we all saw Tuesday night, he makes you sweat. You got a 4-run lead, and he makes you sweat. So something like that's got to get done. Especially when you have the possibility of Bastardo, after he comes back from his 50-game suspension, comes back next year, the possibility that he will be a shell of himself, because maybe all this performance was due to juicing. He can't juice anymore. He might be now a shell of himself. We'll see what happens, though, next season or in this offseason once it officially approaches us. But now, finally, Johnny Manziel, NCAA college football, Texas A&M quarterback, Johnny Football Manziel, is being probed by the NCAA for possibly allegedly doing a signing spree for this one dealer, this memorabilia dealer. What's your take on this whole NCAA thing that player athletes and all the money has to go to the NCAA or to their own college institution, but they cannot take anything for themselves? Why can't athletes shouldn't the NCAA just allow athletes to capitalize on their own name in the court of public opinion, in the open market? Not to say that they should be getting paid by the universities, but if the open market decides that Johnny Football is then why can't he go out and market his own name?
Well, it's simple, because if you're a collegiate athlete, you're considered an amateur, and you can't profit if you're considered an amateur. Now, if that's just the way it is, that's the way it's always been. And if you're a collegiate athlete, you're already receiving full scholarship, room and board, all that kind of thing. The meal plan, you get all that for free, so you can play football. So in my mind, these amateur college athletes are already getting something in return. And if you want to profit off your autographs, or you want to profit off whatever, get a Nike deal, whatever you want to do, then go into the pros. Obviously, you can't, because in college football, you can't come out after your freshman year. But he just needs to kind of put things in perspective. Like, hey, look, if you continue that performance on the field, you're going to be able to make more than the $7,500 that he made from the autograph. So I don't know what he needs the money for. He doesn't need to pay for anything right now. He's in college. He's getting a free ride, and that's not going to be taken away from him. So and also he's been in a lot of trouble for partying a little too hard. There's a lot of videos out there of him partying a little too hard. So I think somebody needs to have a talk with Johnny Manziel. He's like, look, you have one more year, 1 or 2 more years in college, whatever you want to do, and you have to calm down and know how to handle your fame. Know the rules, play by the rules, and kind of lay low a little bit. So I think he's going down a wrong path here, Yossi, and if he can't handle himself while he's in college and follow the rules in college, then I think he's going to have a tough time in the pros, and he may not turn into a good pro quarterback. But he's got to change his attitude in full with everything. And again, to get back to your question, I just think if you're an amateur athlete, you're getting a full boat, you're getting a free education, which I certainly didn't get a free education, so I would have loved to have that. Then they just got to play by the rules. So I think that's just the way it is, and that's the way it has to be.
Well, you can make the argument that Olympic athletes are also technically amateurs, but they can at least profit off of their own name, off their own fame. That the same thing that perhaps NCAA should do the same thing. Then just allow them. Hey, you want to? We're not gonna pay you because we're so to speak paying you the college football, the university, whatever it is. They're paying you by giving you, like you said, the free room and board, the free tuition, the scholarship, and all of that. So they're not going to pay you because that technically would be considered quote unquote payment. But if you want to make something on the side and the open market, the public opinion decided that you're awesome and your signature is worth $100 or $500 or whatever it is, then why not?
Well, I think that kind of opens things up a little bit. Okay, you're going to allow that, but then you're not going to allow recruits to get payments or gifts from friends of the program when you're getting recruited or after you've already been recruited. I think that the autographs in itself may not be a bad thing, but that opens the door for other things that could really get you in trouble, where you're talking about, like, you get cars and piles of cash and such from alumni, where they can hide as like, oh no, he just got paid for giving his autograph out at this charity event. So I think that you can't open that door. You just can't do it.
I hear you. That's a point well taken. We thank you very much for your time, Ari, as always. We know you're a busy guy and have a lot of things to juggle. The voice of the Drexel Dragons, the CEO of SFBN, the Philadelphia High School Sports Network, Ari Bluestein. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me, Yossi.
All the best. Take care now. That was Ari Bluestein here on the air with the Sports Rabbi. When we come back on Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi, the last word. You're listening to All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
You know, our jobs occupy more than half our waking hours. Shouldn't we be doing something we love? Call Connecticut School of Broadcasting at 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Since 1964, Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami, has helped place thousands of grads as DJs, sportscasters, entertainment reporters, behind the scenes in audio and video production, every aspect of the broadcast media. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has trained men and women of all ages and backgrounds in a matter of months, not years. Learn by doing from area radio and TV pros. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. Day and evening classes begin soon. Get trained. Get connected now.
All Noise Radio. The noise you can't ignore.
Welcome back to Rabbi here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. And like we heard right before the break, I was talking there to Ari Bluestein, the CEO of SFBN, the Philly High School Sports Network, and of course also the voice of Drexel Dragons basketball. So we were talking, all about Johnny Manziel and the whole NCAA thing. And he brought up an interesting point there with, if you start with this, if you start with giving the opportunity for an athlete to cash in on autographs. You start with one thing, where do you draw the line, and how will the line be drawn? Now, there has been forever and a day this whole, claim against the NCAA that, listen, what you're doing, what the National Collegiate Athletic Association is doing to their amateur, quote-unquote, amateur athletes is exploiting them. They're exploiting their athletes for their own gain, multi-millions of dollars going into their and the collegiate institutions' coffers. Multi-millions of dollars. You go to Texas, you go to Florida. I mean, the TV deals that these universities have are worth megabucks. And you're going to tell me that an athlete that the amateur athlete, I'm sorry, it's an amateur athlete, that somebody like Johnny Manziel, who won the Heisman as a freshman, as a freshman quarterback, and is, he's loved everywhere he goes. Yeah, he might party a little too hard and probably shouldn't have posted those photos of himself drinking alcoholic beverages, as he's only 20 years old, still underage in the United States, perhaps. But you're going to tell me that somebody like Johnny Manziel is cannot collect on his own name? You want to tell me, if the sports rabbi was playing college ball, let's say college football, and I can't collect on my own John Hancock, I cannot collect on my own signature, all of that, everything that belongs to my name goes to the university, a little bit goes to the NCAA, but I get nothing. The only thing I'm getting, and it is significant, the only thing I'm getting is room and board. Perhaps what, and of course everything else paid for while on campus, perhaps what the college football university should start doing is give the players that stipend. Call it, here is X amount of money for having the rights to everything. This way you can go away from the fact that you can still technically call them amateur athletes because they don't sign contracts, even though they're really signing that contract when they say that they're going to accept a scholarship from the school. But with the scholarship comes a bonus of let's call it, the school can offer anywhere between $0 and $100,000, and that is it. Any 1 red cent more than that, that's it. It's over. You cannot get more than $100,000 split over your career. You get $100,000 on condition that you play at least 3 years of college ball. You get $100,000, $33,000 the first year, $33,000 the second year, $33,000 the third year, and $1,000 is like a bonus, that you kept your word and your commitment. And if you stay for a fourth year and you finish your degree, we'll throw in $50,000. I mean, you got to give some incentive, for athletes to start staying in school and actually finishing up their degree before they go to the NFL. But if they want to cash in, most of them will, you can't really, blame them for wanting to go to the NFL. But if they want to cash in and say, hey, I want to stay here in college, I want to stay, I want to finish my degree before I go off and pursue my football dreams, then you throw them 50% more of the entire deal. Throw them another $50,000. I'm all for the NCAA to finally get over themselves and join the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, who finally, the late 80s, finally decided that their athletes are no longer amateurs also, and they can go ahead and put their faces on Wheatie boxes and sign, sponsorship deals and God knows what else in order to support themselves. In order so they don't have to work a grocery bagger job. So I'm totally for that. And what the NCAA has wrong here is that the players, that their athletes are not going to do this. Of course they're going to do it. They're going to find ways to go ahead and do this under the radar. Are you telling me that players are not getting all these types of things, all these types of gifts and God knows what else that people are giving them, money and favors and what, who knows what else? Of course they are. Now, where are you going to draw the line? I'll tell you where you draw the line. You tell the players up front that they can get from, a maximum of $33,000 per year. Obviously, if it's a star quarterback or a wide receiver or, a specialty position, that they can get X amount of money. That's it. That's the max that they can get, no more. If you find out that they have a red cent more, then they're banished from, then they're suspended for the year. They can't, attend any team practices, any games, anything like that. They're still part of the football program. They're still part of the team. Their scholarship is up in jeopardy, but they're suspended. You have to work it out, obviously, between the universities and the NCAA and everything like that. But there's no players' association, so the athletes are kind of screwed. But if that's really, where you want to go, and I think it could be successful, and it could be done, if it's done right, it could be successful. Johnny Manziel, of course, he was secretly taped for signing autographs for a memorabilia collector. So for the future, I think, firstly, this memorabilia collector is never going to have another athlete want to do any signings with him because maybe I might be secretly taped. Why the heck would I want to do that? Put my career in jeopardy. I really think that this whole athletes can't collect on their name in the open market based upon the court of public opinion deciding that they're awesome or not is just a whole bunch of bogus. Another thing in the court of public opinion, and this one obviously is a big deal, is Riley Cooper comes back to the Eagles practice, comes back to training camp this past week. Really, the whole thing that he did, the whole video, the whole everything at the country singers concert where he used the N-word, saying that he was going to beat up or destroy or kill all the specific people of that specific race. Of course, he was focusing in on one African American security guard when he said that. But what he said, of course, is something that should never be uttered. It's, of course, something that should never be spoken, should never even really go into the thought process of people. But, of course, we all know people are people, and everybody has their, their reservations about the next person to themselves. And they have the thoughts. And you know what? Thoughts are fine, so long as they remain thoughts. Once they come out to words or actions, it's a whole different ballgame. No pun intended. With Riley Cooper, really, yeah, of course, he knows himself that he shouldn't have done or said what he said. The real thing here is what we can all learn from his mistake. Firstly, don't get drunk, like stupidly drunk that you won't, can't control yourself. That's a whole separate issue that Cooper may have to address. Hopefully sooner than later, that he probably does have a drinking problem, and the Eagles have got to get that all sorted out and figured out. But the other thing that really we can learn from this is that we are all human. We all have our differences. We all have our nuances and our idiosyncrasies. It's who we are. We're flawed. We're a flawed species. But that's what also makes us so great. That's what also makes us so fantastically awesome and wonderful. Is that we are different from one another. There are no two peas in the pod. We are all separate individuals. And when we come together for certain things, that's what makes it so special. Because you have all these people from different backgrounds, different upbringings, different ethnicities, all coming together to do something wonderful, to do something even great. For something that happened, something like this that Cooper said, in the whole situation, everything that it surrounded it, that it kind of branched out of, and events that led up to this situation of him saying what he said and doing what he did. Really, this is a learning opportunity for everybody, because it allows, not just for him, he's got so much to do for himself, introspection and everything like that, but we, as people, as everyday sports fans, this is also a time for us to have introspection for ourselves, our lives. Who are we? What are we? Who do we want to be? What type of person do we want to? How do we want to live our life? And once we are able to kind of look into ourselves and see how we are as people, and to recognize perhaps inequities that we have, issues that we have to deal with, and things that we disagree with our neighbor or with society. Once we're able to recognize these issues and potential issues, we're able to address them and make them right and do right by them and to be able to make ourselves better. Until next time, I am is All Noise Radio, and we are powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.